Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of JOECMDRAWZ and welcome back to another episode of Artstyle Analysis. I really liked doing the first one last time, so we're back again. This time we're looking at Alex Hirsch's Gravity Falls. So what we're going to do is that we're going to look at some examples of some concept art from the show. All of it where you can look at it yourself can be linked down in the description. And we're going to look and analyze the art style, look at the eyes, ears, noses, hairstyle, limbs, break it down, kind of make our own observations, and then what I'll do is I'll show you my own drawings at the very end, and you can tell me if I got close enough to the style of Gravity Falls. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, okay, so let's take a quick overview looking at Dipper and the whole style. So to start off with, you can see that the head is very almost a peanut shaped or very round shaped. This is obviously very common in this type of art style. A few little details here, like the eyes are very big and round circle shapes with the pupils in the middle of them. The nose always comes out from the eyes. It's always popping out from the eyes there. The eyebrows are very small and thin. Dipper's mouth is very simple. The limbs are all very tube-like, which makes it a lot easier to animate. On the hands here, they only have 3 fingers and a thumb to make it easier on the animation, I assume. Other details, like Dipper has these like lines underneath his eyes. I don't know whether that's just a detail that they liked or wanted to add, maybe to add Dipper's stress. I don't know, but that's a really cool detail. So if you want to kind of like replicate this kind of style, you might want to keep this in mind. Other details include like Dipper's ears. It's just a simple C shape. There's no details in it, but that's kind of like contrasted by some characters later on. And this is a really good example here, showing this turnaround of Dipper actually, which is really cool, showing his form kind of like turning in 3D space, and you get a really good idea of like how these ships play off of each other. Dipper's arms, kind of like when he's standing, just hang down by his sides in just a simple tube shape, so it's not really that difficult to replicate actually. Obviously, when the arms are out like this, you'll have to like pay attention to like how thick or thin the fingers are. It kind of changes depending on what kind of character they are, but for Dipper here, it's pretty easy. When they're worried, like this expression with Dipper here, you can see they have one line there in between the eyebrows to indicate the flap of skin in between your eyebrows to show the wrinkling of the skin, which is a really nice detail. I've noticed in all of these views, except for maybe some of the front views, the actual skin or the flesh of his head is very close to his eyeballs. So when he's turned to like the side or 3/4, the eyeballs actually pop out from the actual face here, which is kind of interesting. So that's Dipper. It's a really cool way to kind of like break down the style. In complete contrast to Dipper, though, we have this character here. This character is obviously slightly older than Dipper, and we've got Dipper there as an example, but a lot of the details are still carried over. So this guy, again with the hair, it's still broken into chunky shapes, but it's completely different from Dipper's. They even have extra details like hair popping out of here to show it's kind of a little bit more scruffy, a little more unkempt than Dipper's hair, whereas Dipper's hair is very broken into big chunky shapes like a so it's broken into these easy shapes that you can kind of like really easily follow. Um, Other details, like obviously the mouth is still the same shape as Dipper's. It's very this like kind of like almost bean shape, which is really kind of easy to replicate. If you just practice a little bit, you can actually get that. Pretty interesting. Similarly with this guy's limbs as Dipper's, they're just tube shaped, almost like sausages actually, which is the easy way of thinking about it. Similarly with the limbs, they're very long and thin and tube-like, still the same kind of like flat big feet, even though they're completely different proportions, they're still the same kind of like details taken over. Similarly with Dipper's fingers, you can see they're just simple, what, 1, 2, 3 there. Similarly with this guy's, even though they're bigger and longer, it's still the same kind of thing. Other stand-up details include like the acne on this guy. Now, you don't need a lot of it to show that he has it, but just hinting at it will indicate or show that he actually has acne, indicating that he's a little bit older than Dipper. Similarly with his scruff here on his chin, you only need a couple little details to show that, oh yeah, this character is more of a teenager rather than Dipper, and it shows the difference between the two characters. So if you wanted to make a more childlike character in this style, you would follow more of the Dipper and Mabel proportions, the kind of slightly fatter head, the cheek popping out, the bigger eyes, the ears here popping out, the big head, small body, kind of like tiny arms, thing with tiny fingers. Yeah, if you wanted to make him more of a teenage proportioned character, you would look at this guy and say, well, he's got longer arms, longer feet, longer legs, just to show that he's a little bit more mature and older than Dipper. His nose is almost also different than Dipper's, whereas Dipper's is very much a button nose, whereas this guy's very much a long sausage. But have you noticed that it doesn't actually come up right up to the eyeballs like Dipper's does? His just kind of like hangs down here like a Squidward nose almost. But yep, that's kind of like in complete contrast to Dipper's proportions. So that's kind of interesting. That's a cool thing to take away. In complete contrast to that, though, we look at someone like Grunkle Stan here, who has very different proportions. His head, all the heads are very shapely, like they're all made of simple shapes. So Grunkle Stan's here is very much a trapeze, or very much like a square or a rectangle. Yet Dipper's is very much made of circles, showing that he's a little bit squishier and a little bit rounder, whereas Grunkle Stan, he's very square, his square shoulders, a square torso, his square head. Even his ears are very squarish, which is interesting. Some of the details are still taken over from, like, the eyeballs are very close together, the kind of wrinkles underneath the eyes, the nose coming up in between the eyes, yet the ears are kind of different. And I've noticed this for some older characters or standout characters, that they have extra details on them. Whereas Grunkle Stan's ears, they're a completely different shape to the normal, like, circle-shaped ears, like this guy's ears. And this guy's a standout character himself, but we'll get to him in a minute. He also has details in his ears here, even though it's slightly, just only a little bit more than what we see on Dipper. It's still enough to indicate, oh well, Grunkle Stan is a lot older. And I know it's kind of obvious, but he has extra details on there to show that he's a lot older of a person. So like the details on his nose here, how he has like these spots or pimples or a little bit of texture on his nose to kind of show that he's a little bit more aged. His ears are a lot bigger and he's got details in them. He has these big hands, these big meaty hands, that you can see. But it's still the same kind of like stuff that's followed through with it. The sausage-like fingers, the tube-like limbs, the long-like legs and big feet. It's still the same thing, except some of the details are changed. Whereas Dipper had like just small eyebrows, Grunkle Stan has these big, thick, bushy eyebrows. And I've noticed this with some of the hair, that if they want to make longer hair, like beards or eyebrows or whatever, they will do these shapes, like, so they come up and they're very round, so they're very rectangle in shape, which is kind of keeping a theme with Grunkle Stan shapes. But they also have these round bits on the end here that shows the details of its hair, not just some shape there, which is really interesting. In comparison to this guy's kind of like a little standout, because all the other characters that we've seen up to now have the very same round eyes that stick very close together with the round pupils, as you can see in Grunkle Stan. But this guy, he has these slanty eyes, these like almost like wedge shape eyes that aren't close together at all. They have a space here in between where the nose is. I have noticed that when doing mustaches, they will just do this 1-2 shape. So if you just imagine like two ellipses just together, you can easily, and then just join them in the middle. You'll make this kind of mustache shape, which is kind of interesting. And then obviously you've got the bushy eyebrows here. The limbs are also kind of slightly different. They're no longer like just tubes. They're very like elliptical. Similarly with this guy's body, it's very elliptical. Only the legs here are very follow that tube-like structure, but this guy's kind of weird. He's obviously a standout character that has something to do in the show, but I just thought that was really interesting to point out. Moving on from some of the human characters, let's have a look at someone like Bill Cipher, who's completely different to the rest of the other characters. So if you're going to want to make a monster kind of like character from the show, or your own kind of like version of a monster maybe that they haven't done in the show, you want to take note of kind of this sort of stuff. So immediately, Bill Cipher is not human shaped. Obviously, he's triangle. Um, Also, other details are that he has this one big eye, but it's more almond shaped, and in the middle he has a vertical pupil, and that's kind of consistent with a lot of the other monster character designs that you can see in the show, which is a really interesting and really key detail that you need if you want to kind of like replicate that. Again, arms and legs are very tube-like, and it sees on the notes here in the concept art that they have like a slight roundness in the joints, a slight curve, which is interesting. That's pretty interesting. Other creatures that follow this kind of stuff are this guy, this ogre or monster kind of guy. Again, he has the eye here, but he has the vertical pupil, which is quite interesting to look at, which is an interesting detail to point out. So if you want to kind of replicate monster designs, you're going to want to do this vertical pupil kind of look. Other monsters include this guy. I'm not sure what this guy's detail is, but he has sort of some human elements, which make him a little bit more humanoid, which obviously goes with more of his humanoid appearance. The tube-like limbs, the close together eyes, the nose that is unique, the kind of like sausage-shaped mouth, which is interesting. So if you want a little bit more humanoid monster reference, I would say look at this guy, which is really interesting. Other details that we should point out from this style are more of the wide range of like different details that the human characters have. So in this example, you've got this like long nose for this guy. You've got this almost like three shaped nose for this guy, this stubby little nose, and then this big long Squidward-like nose. So some details are still repeated with background characters or whatever they might be. They're still carried over, but they're just slightly changed a little bit. Similarly, like for these thinner characters, their limbs are obviously longer and thinner. Other details are like the beard here. They're again broken down to just one big shape that just has these like little tufts as details. And obviously no details in the ears either. Yet complete contrast to that with this guy. When there's like some slight curls in the hair, they'll do like this bit where they kind of like loop it around and back into the shape, which is kind of interesting. Again, it's here on the soul patch, and yeah, I think that's interesting. With bigger characters like this guy, they kind of like have the head come down here and then immediately straight into the limbs. There's no kind of distinction between the neck and the shoulders. It just goes straight from the neck into the arms. Other details include like you can see the arm here that leads into the fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got the 4 fingers there, and then you got the bump here, which is the bump of the palm. So if you want to get a little bit better, maybe replicating the limbs, I would say try that out as well. And then other details are just one lines here to show the mouth. The head shapes are also kind of different as well. This guy's more boxy. This guy follows more of the dipper format with the bumps on the face. And this guy follows more of the other character earlier, the teenage character, where he has a more like elongated pill-shaped head or bean-shaped head. That's pretty much what we can use. A brief, quick overview of the style and main stuff I can point out that gives it its uniqueness to makes it look like the Gravity Falls style. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you my drawings and we'll kind of like discuss a little bit. Okay, here's my drawings of what I've taken from the observation of the concept that we've already gone over. What do you think? I think I've done pretty well. In some of these drawings, I still think I need a little bit more practice of trying to get that style, but I think I've named some key elements that I've taken over from what I mentioned earlier, and I've applied it here. So, for example, the eyes are very close together, which I think I've kind of nailed. That's really a key detail of the style. I think the noses that are very close to the face, I think I've gotten pretty close with that. Facial hair, again, in one big shape, especially on this character. I think that's the best example I think I've gotten, um, where I've taken details from what I've seen and applied them here. I still think I could have probably made this guy's face a little bit fatter and then showed that detail where they have the face coming actually out from the eyeball. But I still think it's really good to show and discuss this. Other details like this guy's facial hair, I probably should have dialed it back a little bit because I think it's too much, but I still think it's interesting. This guy, I've gotten that curly hair look that we saw earlier on some of the other characters, which is interesting. So I've gotten that. I still think this side view could have been a lot better. I probably need to go back and re-look at that turnaround of Dipper to get a good idea of what the side-on or profile views look like. I've got a character here that I created that using Grunkle Stan as a reference. I think the hair is fine. I probably wouldn't do this monobrow here. I've got the ears that are pretty much interesting. Mine here is a little bit more rounder than Grunkle Stan, with Grunkle Stan's very blocky, but I still think it's kind of close. And then obviously the details on the nose that I've taken from that, which is interesting. The big kind of like sausage-shaped mouth. Here again on this guy, I think it's interesting. You even got a hat on there. I don't think that's close enough to how they draw hats in the show, but that's kind of an interesting thing. Again, with like the nose, the eyes. We've even got the eye detail here where they've got that little line underneath there, which I think is interesting. More of a Dipper hairstyle here, and then just some like tube-like limbs here. This guy with the mustache and the nose, I've changed it up a little bit. I probably could have made his eyes a little bit bigger, and obviously no details in the ears, which is interesting. Again, a female character here, where the hair goes actually behind the ears. I do still struggle with, I think I'm making the ears a little too small. I still need to, I think I need to make them a little bit bigger, more of a C-shaped. But I did notice that on some of the characters that the face actually met up perfectly with the bottom of the ears, and then the ears would circle around into that C shape, which would also be met up with the hair, like the hairline. But I still think this is kind of interesting and a good example of what you can do when just looking at the art style. Here's an example of me trying to make a vampire using what I've extracted from the monsters. So the eyes are okay for some of the more humanoid ones. I've got the vertical pupils that are present in some of them, like Bill Cipher, and I've got the ears here. I didn't know what they would do with the ears here, but I decided to go and mix it and match some details. So like the no details in some of the other characters' ears, but the pointiness of some of the monsters. So I don't know, let me know about that one. The rounded teeth that they have in the show. I probably could have changed up the nose to make it a little bit more pointy using some of the other characters to as an example, but I still think it's pretty close. Yeah, that's all I've really got to show. This is some of my own drawings. Let me know how close I got to the Gravity Falls style, whether what else could I have done to improve it, what else could I have done to maybe get a little bit closer to the style. But anyway, that's all I've really got for you today. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff. And let me know if you enjoyed it. What other style should I try and replicate or try and break down? What else could I have done better for this video? What else could I have covered? But yeah, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later. Bye. Hey there, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share my work around. I'll see you next time.